fourth webinar in this series of workshops, and we have so far looked into the brief document, preparation of brief documents, preparation of health cards, and IMPs, right?
Yes.
And IMPs. So today definitely we'll be looking into the most basic thing, that is the wetland rules under which we are supposed to prepare the brief documents and IMPs. So this would give us an idea about the statutory framework surrounding conservation of our wetlands. I think around 15 to 16 candidates. Sonal Bhatt has just joined. So we got some 15, 16 parties. We'll right away start, Dr. Ritesh Kumar. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Ritesh Kumar. Kindly over to you, please.
Thank you, Dr. Jayachandran. I think today we will discuss the most fundamental of pieces of legislation under which wetlands conservation is being done, and we will try to understand what are the implications for state wetland authority primarily. So what is the role of state wetland authority, what is the role of nodal departments, and how do we coordinate with Ministry of Environment and Forest, which is the nodal agency for implementation of these rules. So the presentation will be for about 30-35 minutes, and then I look forward to questions that you may have. I'll now start sharing my screen so that you can see. Dushyant, can you confirm whether the screen is visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Yes, okay. Thank you so much. So this is the name of the piece of legislation that we are dealing with. It is called Wetlands Conservation and Management Rules 2017. This was so today we will understand what is the scope of these rules, what are the roles and regulation responsibilities of different agencies, how do we prepare draft and final notifications under the rules, how do we frame management plans, and what are the implications for enforcement. So these are primarily 5 topics that I'll deal with in my presentation, but please feel free to ask any question that you may have at any stage in time. The wetland rules is a single piece of regulation that directly deals with wetlands. There are other regulations also which have implications for wetlands. For example, Forest Act, Wildlife Protection Act, Biodiversity Act. So there are several pieces of legislation which have implications for wetlands. But this particular piece of legislation has it is structured around the wetland. Secondly, it introduces the concept of wise use, which is the principal, management approach which government of India is a signatory to Ramsar Convention. So that wise use principle has been brought into the legislation. And finally, this is a rules under the Mother Act remains Environment Protection Act 1986. So so that we should remember, these are a piece of rules. So this is a rule under the Mother Act of Environment Protection Act 1986 and its amendments. And in 2020, the Ministry of Environment and Forest also introduced the guidelines for implementation of wetland rules. So this presentation is largely based on these guidelines. I was also a committee member which framed these guidelines. So thereby I can give you confidence that what we are speaking is in consonance with the main document. First of all, let us understand where does this rule apply. So the rules will apply, number 1, to Ramsar sites. So these are wetlands of international importance designated under Ramsar Convention, or any wetland that has been notified under the provision of wetland rules. So the beginning point is, if the wetland is not notified, the implementation of rules can be challenged. So we will have to first of all notify a wetland, and there is a notification procedure that we will be discussing in the subsequent slides. But the notification is the initial step through which we determine what kind of a regulation will apply or not apply to a site. Right. So let us remember now what is not covered in these rules. Let us remember. Let us see it very clearly. River channels cannot be. So River channels cannot be designated under these rules. Paddy fields cannot be designated. Human-made wetlands, so human-made water bodies which are specifically constructed for number one, drinking water supply, aquaculture, that means culture of fisheries, salt production, recreation, and irrigation. So, if there is a human made wetland which has been created for any of these purposes only, they will be excluded. They cannot be notified. Or wetlands are under overlapping regulations. So, either these regulations come from the forest side, so the Forest Act 1927, Forest Conservation Act 1980, any of the state forest, or uh, or the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, or Coastal Regulation Zone Notification 2011, or any amendment thereof. So these cannot be notified, but the regulation, the principle of regulation on wise use can definitely apply to any of these wetlands. So these are the categories which are excluded. You cannot notify a wetland if it falls under any of these categories, but the principle of wise use can apply. So we will see in the later slides how does it work. Again, let us remember specifically on the human-made wetlands category, if there is a human-made wetland which is used for any other purpose other than the ones stated above, the rules will apply. So let us be very clear and let us remember this time and again. Now I'll show you how this regulation is supposed to work in practice. Now, in this figure, what you see is is a river stream. Now, if the river stream is an independent piece which you have identified as a wetland, or there is aquaculture farms which you have identified as a wetland, or there is a paddy field which you have identified as a wetland, or there is an aquaculture area that you have identified as a wetland. If they are solely, if the wetland is only comprising of these types, then they are not covered under the ambit of these rules. But suppose you have a larger wetland in which there is a piece of paddy field inside, or there is a piece of aquaculture farm inside, or there is a river stream inside, then it will be covered. So if it is independently on its own forming the wetland type, then it is not covered. But if it forms a part of a larger wetland, of which there is a river channel inside, or there is paddy field inside, or there are aquaculture farms inside, then it is covered. So let us remember two things. If it is on an isolation, falling into one of the exclusion categories, then it is excluded. But if it forms a part of the wetland itself, for example, Vular Lake in Kashmir has a river Jhelum flows through the wetland. So in that case, the river channel is an integral part of the wetland and all regulations will apply on the river channel. But if you want to look at, a tributary of river Yamuna, say Hindan, and if you want to declare it as a wetland, it cannot be declared. So that is, let us remember this principle. This is what the guidelines suggest. Now, Ramsar sites are a unique example wherein they might be covered under Wildlife Protection Act. They might even be a river channel. For example, River Ganga Bridgeghat to Naroda is a river channel. Now, if it is a Ramsar site already declared, then it needs to be notified. It needs to be notified, but its regulation will be under the extant rules. So areas not covered under the extant rules will be regulated under wetland rules. And now, why is this suggested? Let us remember, when you look at any notification under Wildlife Protection Act, it will give you the wildlife boundary. It will not give you the wetland boundary. So when you have wetland boundary, and you will also have a zone of influence. This that has produced, we'll discuss in the subsequent slide. And then we also determine what is to be regulated in zone of influence. So I'll give you one example why regulation under wetland rules becomes beneficial. Now, this is a site in Tamil Nadu. Now, this is a complex site. This is a whole, wetland which has mangroves, which are reserved forest. You see this Muthupet. So this red line shows what is the reserved forest part. And then there is a sanctuary, right? So this red line is the sanctuary, and you will obviously see sanctuary is more than the wetland, because sanctuaries are determined on the basis of how animals or certain species use the habitat, and they might be non-wetland habitats as well. Now, the whole wetland also includes large areas which are not regulated under any act. And now, under wetland rules, this whole boundary can be regulated, right? So, the piece under the Wildlife Protection Act will continue to be governed by wildlife rules. The piece under reserve forest will continue to be governed by reserve forest rules. But in the middle, this is an open area of the wetland which cannot be regulated. Now, herein, the provisions of wetland rules will apply. So this is the beauty of wetland rules. Any gap filling can be done by wetland rules. If there are no gaps, then extant provision of any other overlapping provision will apply. They will prevail. That is what the rules say. But if there are any gaps, this rule is an opportunity to fill in those regulatory gaps. Now, first of all, the rules provide for creation of wetlands authority. Now, Dr. Jayachandran sits here as the nodal, as a member secretary of the authority. Now, let us understand these are deemed notified, even if the state government or union territory does not issue a notification. The day the rules came into existence, they were deemed notified. No separate notification is required for the wetland authority. It is the nodal authority within states and UTs for all wetland related matters. Anything to do with regulation, policy making, sectoral expertise is rests with wetland authority. It is multi-sectoral in structure. So it has secretaries of all line departments with expert input. So independent experts are there. And the state government will have to designate a nodal department for acting as a secretariat for the authority. Authority is a body of people, right? It meets, it conducts its business through meetings. But for day-to-day functions, for example, creating an inventory, and if you see a lot of tasks are to be done, a department has to be designated as a secretariat. So, Dr. Jayachandran, I understand. So, for in the context of Delhi, Parks and Garden Society is now the nodal department. Is that right? Can you please unmute and confirm? Dr. Jayachandran, can you hear me? I think there is a network issue. So this is how. So they will have to every state government or yes, Dr. Jayachandran, we were waiting for your response. So
Yes,
can you
yes,
please
yes, yes.
confirm? Yes, so that is the structure. See, so let us understand the authority is a body of people. It will have a secretariat which rests in a government department, but the authority is free to identify a support organization. So, for in this example, we have been asked to support the authority in delivering its functions. So, this is how the authority is supposed to deliver its functions. Now, what are the exact functions that we expect from the authority? The other two independent thing, every authority will have within the authority, right? It will constitute two committees. One is the technical committee, and the purpose of technical committee is to review brief documents, review management plans, or advise on any matter related to wetlands. So this is a smaller body inside the authority, right? Its constitution is apart from the members sitting in the authority, there is a technical committee and there is a grievance committee also. So any public, so grievance committee, uh, grievance committee can, take, take cognizance of any complaint by the public, and it can review it and forward it to the main wetland committee. So for each wetland authority, the nodal department is supposed to notify a technical committee and grievance committee. I understand the process for Delhi is ongoing, right? Now let us look at what is the authority supposed to do. Sorry, it stopped. I'll stop sharing and share the slides once again. There is some. So share the slides. Yeah. Okay. So what does the authority do? So first of all, it has a knowledge function, right? So it has to prepare the wetland inventory. It has to issue the guidance. So it has a knowledge and advisory function. The other bit is it has a regulation function. So it has to notify, it has to enforce, it has to report compliance. There is a coordination function. So manage any implementation of management plan. The coordination job is that of wetland authority, and it has to create an enabling environment for conservation of wetlands. So through awareness generation, so through convergence with different departments. So these are four major functions that any wetland authority constituted within states and union territories they have to deliver, and that's why we recommend when once you now you can refer to the previous recommendation why it is asking for experts being on board, or why is it asking to create a technical committee and grievance committee, so that the authority is able to deliver this multidisciplinary function. That is how wetland authorities can deliver all the relevant functions that is expected to promote or ensure conservation of wetlands. Now, what are the steps? How do we notify? First of all, and this is again, I'll request Dr. Jayachandran to look at this slide very carefully. The first task is to create a list of all wetlands. Who has to do it? The wetland authority. There is a format, so it has, it's a simple format. So you have to provide the name of the wetland, you have to provide the name of the nodal agency, and whatever area that we know about should be mentioned there. So in the case of Delhi, we have about 1,000 water bodies or wetlands, whatever we may call. So we have to provide a list, create a list of all those wetlands. Once we have created a list, then we have to determine whether it is covered under the rules or not, right? For each wetland. So let us go back into the coverage. So let us remember this slide. It is not covered if the wetland is a river channel, paddy field, or human-made water bodies for these purposes, or they're under the overlapping regulation. So we will have to, after creating that list, and we will have to determine whether it is covered or not. If it is not covered, we maintain the inventory and promote entering these wetlands as such into land use records. Right. This is a recommended step by the ministry that you enter the wetland into land use records, but you need not take any action here. But if it is covered under the rules, then you have to check two things. Whether it is transboundary, if the wetland is shared with other states. For example, Dr. Jayachandran, if in the case of Nazargarh, it is transboundary, then when you prepare the brief document, you just have to prepare the document and send it to MOFCC, nothing else. Your job stops there. If it is not transboundary, then you prepare the brief document. Now, who will prepare the brief document? You will have to entrust it to the nodal department. So for each wetland, you will need to identify a department, which I think you have allocated the wetlands to about 16 departments. So you will have to say that this is the nodal department. They will prepare the brief document. Now, after receiving the brief document, there is a suggested format for draft notification. So you will have to pick up the information that is contained in the brief document, and you will prepare the draft notification, put it in the public domain for 60 days, collect inputs, and within 240 days, you'll have to prepare final notification. Now, after preparing final notification, simultaneously, it is recommended that you enter the wetland into land use records and also start the process for preparing management plan so that you can intervene for conserving the wetland. So this is the whole framework. So let us understand what does this start. So Wetland Authority, which is Dr. Jayachandran's office, they will prepare a list, which they have done. What I am seeing, what is missing from the list is exact names of these, water bodies and they're lat long. So there is a master sheet that needs to be prepared. And there will be a column where whether you will say that whether it is covered under the wetland rules or not. So you will examine various provisions. You will have to determine whether it is a river channel or not, whether it is a paddy field or not, whether it is a human-made wetland for XYZ purposes or not, whether it is covered under any other regulation or not. After having done these rules, you might say that out of 1,000, wetland rules are applicable to 20 or even 200 such wetlands. I don't know. So for those 200 wetlands, Dr. Jayachandran, you will have to then examine which of these are transboundary. If these are transboundary, then you prepare the brief document but forward it to the ministry. Your job, the first step, closes there. If it is not transboundary, you will prepare the brief document. You will get it prepared, rather, not prepare. You will get it prepared from the nodal department. Then the draft notification will come from your office. You will have to specify what is prohibited, what is regulated, and what is permitted in these wetlands. Who will permit, what is the limit, and then you will prepare the final notification. That is a standard protocol. And then also there is one step that we are not mentioning here. You will have to place all this information onto the ministry's website. So all of this information will need to be transmitted. There is a website of the ministry wherein you have to log in your draft notification, your wetland list, so that everybody is aware of these steps. Now, what are the steps of notification? So let us look at the steps. There are 5 steps. Number 1, we have to delineate the wetland. Number 2, we have to delineate the zone of influence. Third is we prepare the brief document. Fourth and fifth is draft and final notification. Now let's look at wetland delineation. Again, this is a slightly technical exercise. We use 3 signatures. So how do you determine whether it is a wetland? 3 conditions. It should have water permanently or seasonally, right? We will now look into further details. What do we mean by permanent or seasonal inundation? Second, it is macrophyte. So these are plants which are adapted to wet conditions. So now you look at the vegetation on the margins. Now these are primarily, they will grow only in dry areas. But these plants in between, where I have shown the arrow, these are the ones which are suited only for wet conditions. So that is one signature. And third is, it has to have saturated or flooded soil. Now, what does it mean in reality? Now, confusion happens mostly at the margin. Where should I draw the boundary of the wetland? Let me give you an example. First of all, in terms of inundation, again, this is a photograph from the Nori, but this is very, similar to our wetlands. Now, let us look at inundation. Now, you have to mark the margin where water stays for less than 15 days. If water stays on that land for less than 15 days in a normal monsoon year, that should not be included in the boundary. The reason is water. So wetland is a water-driven ecosystem. If water is for Jayachandran Saab, you have raised a hand. So is there a question? Dr. Jayachandran, can you kindly unmute? I see you raising your hand.
I will ask at the last.
Okay, thank you. So
Last in the last.
Okay, fair. Okay, fair. So now what we will do is, let us take up 3 things. So if water is there in the wetland for less than 15 days in a year, I think it will not generate an ecosystem by itself. So if you look at the water boundary, it should have water for more than 15 days. Soil saturation, if the soil is saturated, if the soil water level is more than 1 foot from the surface, excluded. If it is less than 1 foot from the surface, included. Hydrophytes. So if it is not predominant, now let us look at the margin. Here the trees and hydrophytes are coexisting, but neither is in predominance, right? If you put in a quadrat and if you count the number of plants, they will come up as 40% is wetland plants, 60% is terrestrial plants. That should be excluded. But herein, if you look at the center, this is predominantly hydrophytes. That is more than 60% of plants in this area are hydrophytes we should include. So this is how you will use these thumb rules. Again, you are free. These are only guidances from the ministry, but these are very useful. When I am in the field, so suppose there is a flood, the entire, suppose the Kalandi Kunj wetland, if there is a flood and the entire park is flooded, that will not make the entire park a wetland. If water recedes within 15 days naturally, you should not include, you should only use the area where water stays for 15 days or more. Similarly, saturated soils. Now, this is especially important when you're looking at river floodplains. Now, river floodplains, normally in Delhi, you have the two embankments, and all area under embankments will have these conditions. But if the embankment area is open, you can use soil saturation as an indicator. So the outer envelope of all these three criteria is what will determine the boundary. So that is how you determine the boundary. Now the second concept is uh, of a wetland complex. So sometimes wetlands do not exist as a single water body. They appear as connected water bodies. Now this is an example, not from Delhi, but just to give you an idea, there is a river flowing in between. On the left margin, there is a huge wetland, and on the right margin, there is a huge wetland. Now, ideally, you can start making a polygon here and you will say this is wetland 1, this is wetland 2, and wetland 3. But technically, this is one connected wetland. So herein what you will do is you will take the outer boundary and delineate it as a complex, not as a single wetland. The complex will have one part. So this will be one wetland of the complex, the second wetland, the third wetland, the fourth wetland. But this will be delineated as a complex. And to maintain ecological connectivity, some non-wetland areas, for example, this area which is typically dry, will have to be included to maintain ecological connectivity. So when wetlands are connected either hydrologically or ecologically, you can also delineate it as a complex rather than a single wetland. So herein, you will not issue 4 individual notifications, only one notification will be required. After having delineated the wetland, you will have to prepare a map. So how do we prepare the map? Number one, pick up the most recent satellite image for normal hydrological year. So normal hydrological, so it should neither be a drought year, neither be a flood year, right? So if you look into IMD records, they will tell you which rainfall, what is the long-term average. And if the rainfall is in the lines, that year can be used for delineation. And there is Bhuvan, website, Government of India's website. You can log in and you can pick up your satellite image. The mapping recommended scale, if it is less than 100 hectares, the wetland map should be produced at 1:4,000 scale. If it is between 100 to 500 hectares, it should be produced at 1:10,000 scale. If it is from 500 to 4,000 hectares, it has to be produced at 1:25,000 scale. And for all greater area wetlands, it has to be produced at 1:50,000 scale. So when we are submitting maps in brief document, Dr. Jayachandran, we will have to encourage that the wetland maps are produced at 1:4,000 scale. Now in Google Earth, if you are using Google Earth as the basis, there is always a scale shown at the bottom of the window. So we will use that bottom window. The projection for the ease of consistency, and this is something that your GIS people will tell you, it has to be WGS 84 datum UTM projection. Wetland boundary should be clearly shown. Diversity of habitats, it is recommended that different types of habitats, whether it is an open water, marsh, fish farms, etc., should be shown. All inflows and outflows should be shown very clearly. If a map does not show inflows and outflows and major landmarks, so not only the wetland, but suppose there is a nearby settlement, a colony, or some major landmark, that has also to be shown. So these are minimum prerequisites when we receive or submit a map. So herein you will see in this map, what we are showing is a scale. We are showing the north, azimuthal north. We are showing a map of India and map of the state and where is the wetland. And then we are also showing the boundary and different types of habitats that are existing. This is a good reference. This is one of the accepted maps. It has even been published in the Ramsar Convention. And we are showing the reference here. You can see the name of major villages here, the major road name. So you can know where the maps is. Now, the idea of zone of influence. Now, this is a very tricky bit wherein the guidelines have been written mostly, slightly more diffuse to allow, one size fits all approach will not work here. Now, what is the zone of influence? The zone of influence is typically an area where if you do any developmental activity, it will affect the wetland. For example, if you look at this photograph, look at these settlements. So if there is no sewage treatment here, everything will flow into the wetland and wetland will be contaminated. So this is what is the concept of zone of influence. So they are encouraging you not only to look inside the wetland, but also what is happening around the wetland. Now, there are two principles. One is a typical hydrological principle. So we use the concept of a watershed. And where does the water come in? So this is one example. This is one big wetland in Odisha, and they have delineated the catchment, direct catchment. So this is a river that comes into the wetland, and all the drainages that directly flow into the wetland can be delineated. But for urban wetlands, delineating such a huge area can be very difficult. In that case, you will have to take a more proactive approach. And this is one urban wetland from Tripura, Rudrasagar. Now, here is what I will do if I were to do the regulation. This is the central wetland area. I will include mostly the settlements which are around the wetland and directly draining. So herein you will see there is a road going on here. You see there is a ring. It's a natural ring forming. I will use this, and if you see my cursor, to create my boundary of zone of influence. I will not demarcate a huge area. In urban areas, it is very difficult to demarcate a huge area because that will have consequences of whether you can permit buildings or whether you can permit any new construction. So for urban areas, I will recommend that, and even the ministry recommends that only that area which directly influences the wetland should be considered. Otherwise, don't include large areas on hydrological principles. But if there is a larger wetland and it's a rural area where you feel regulation will work, you can go ahead and use it as a drainage basis. Both these options. The ministry gives you approaches, but there are no standard guidelines on this. So this is where state wetland authority will have to take its own decision and give appropriate, help to the nodal departments on delineating their zone of influence. For example, in Kalindi Kunj case, I will recommend that the DDA park area, the outer park boundary, is taken as the zone of influence. Nothing more. We should not include any colony, any settlement in the zone of influence business. Now, let us come to the third concept. How do we base the regulation? So wetlands, again, the concept of wise use. So if you look into those of you who have some backing in Wildlife Act or Forest Act, they recommend that wetland or any protected area, no human activity is desired. In wetland, it is a reverse case. Some human activity is actually helpful for the wetland. So we are saying that we have to determine the basic condition of the wetland, and we can permit anything which does not change the basic condition of the wetland. When I talk about condition, it is about the plants and animals which live inside the wetland. It is about the cycles which happen inside the wetland, and it is about the benefits that people derive from the wetland. Now, how do you determine whether it is wise use or not? If any use of the wetland, if the structure and functions are being maintained, if it is benefits are also being maintained, it is wise use. It is unwise if the wetland is altered adversely. I will give you some examples of unwise use of a wetland. If any use is leading to reduction in water flowing into the wetland, it will be unwise use. If it is leading to a reduction in area under inundation or changes the inundation regime, it is unwise use. If it is leading to alteration of natural shoreline, it is unwise use. If it is fragmenting the wetland, it is an unwise use. If it is reducing the water holding capacity of the wetland, it is unwise use. If it is deteriorating water quality, or if it is leading to emergence of invasive species, or if it is leading to productivity loss of the wetland, it is unwise use. And this is where Dr. Jayachandran, several states are issuing state level guidances. Don't do these things inside a wetland. whether or not you issue specific notification for a wetland, but these are generic guidelines. These are harmful for any wetland, whether or not it is human made, whether it is a river channel. You don't want these things happening to your wetland. So this is a generic thumb rule that the ministry provides you. How do you determine what kind of projects you can permit? So tomorrow, if somebody says that, sir, I want to build a road inside a wetland, you will say, no, sir, because it is fragmenting the wetland into two pieces. You have to tell me the strategy by which you can maintain habitat connectivity. If you are giving me a structure wherein the wetland will not be fragmented, that is fine with me. But if it is breaking the wetland into two parts, I will not permit. That is how you decide on developmental projects. Activities prohibited. Now, on notified wetlands, some things are mandatorily you cannot do. So you cannot convert a wetland, you cannot set up any industry, you cannot manufacture, handle, or store construction or demolition waste. No solid waste can be dumped. No untreated waste and effluents can be discharged. Any construction of permanent nature except for board jetties within 50 meters from the mean high flood level observed in past 10 years from the date of commencement of these rules. And poaching. These things are blanket. There is a blanket ban. But state wetland authority, you can increase the list. You cannot reduce the list, you can increase. So tomorrow, if you want to say that I don't permit any construction of a boundary wall around a wetland, even if it is beyond 50 meters, you can add on to it. That is perfectly within your jurisdiction. So herein, when brief documents are being done and if the wetland is to be notified, we recommend that who with the nodal department should tell you whether they want to increase the list of prohibited activities or not. That should come in the brief document. That will be your basis of acting. Now, regulating. Now, these things are not banned, but they have to be regulated within a threshold. For example, biomass harvesting. So, some level of fishing, you will have to specify how many fishermen you will permit. Or treated sewage, you will have to specify how many MLD or KLD of sewage you would like to release. Culture fisheries in private lands, not in the public lands. How much will you permit? Non-motorized boats, how much would you permit? Desilting, how much will you permit? Construction of temporary nature, not permanent, temporary nature. For example, in Chat and other we use Penton bridges, right? You can permit that, but you will have to say that this is permitted only for 3 months or so. Jayachandran Sahab, you had a question, so you raised your hand.
Yeah, what about fencing? People are fencing of wetlands. What about that?
So fencing, if it is within 50 meters, it is not permitted. If it is a permanent construction, as per wetland laws, not permitted. Beyond 50 meters, you can do.
I think all agencies should note this point because many of them, to discourage encroachments, we have been proposing fencing across all the wetlands. I think we should note this point.
Yeah, but fencing, so you take a 50-meter boundary and do your fencing. That is okay. You can take 50 meters. Now, what is permitted? So also law talks about what is permitted. So any rehabilitation measure is permitted, inventory assessment monitoring is permitted, research is permitted, any communication activity is permitted, management is permitted, habitat management is permitted, ecotourism with minimum construction activities is permitted, harvesting within regenerative capacity is permitted. You can talk about integration of wetlands in climate change mitigation and adaptation. So why I like this piece of legislation, it is not only talking about what cannot be done, it also tells you what can be done in a wetland. Again, this list can be increased by state wetland authority. What is minimum fixed is the prohibited list. You cannot reduce that list. For the other two lists, it has to be very site specific. The nodal department in consultation with state wetland authority can maintain their own list. That is okay. Now, brief document. After having determined your maps, you will have to prepare this into a format. Again, we had a presentation on this, but every brief document will have the wetland boundary, will have its zone of influence, it will have the ecological character description, pre-existing rights and privileges. We have spoken about this already in the previous webinar. We can repeat this information. Now, herein you will see the last 3 bullet points: list of site-specific activities to be permitted, list of site-specific activities to be regulated, and modalities. How will you regulate? That also has to be specified. Which department will give permission? Suppose you want to give fisheries rights. Now, which department will give it? Will it be the State Wetland Authority or Department of Fisheries? We'll have to specify the name of the department here as well. So this will give you the basic information that you need for issuing a notification. Draft notification, it has 6 sections. One is the description of the wetland, so boundary along with its map. It has its zone of influence along with a map. You'll have to list the activities that are prohibited both within the wetland and its zone of influence. Remember, this is the cumbersome part. You will also have to specify zone of influence and what cannot be done in that zone of influence. Similarly, what is regulated within the wetland or its zone of influence and what is permitted. Right? So you have to be very careful when you issue this notification, and then you will also have to specify the name and details of nodal person who is to be contacted for taking permission. In this case, I assume it will be Member Secretary, Wetlands Authority. So after having this draft notification, 60 days of public consultation time and final notification within 240 days. You can see a draft notification for one of the UP wetlands that is on the ministry's website. Who notifies? So who will issue the notification? All wetlands located within boundary of state and UTs. It is the duty of Jayachandran Saab's office. Transboundary wetlands, you will have to forward the information. Notification will be done by the ministry. For Ramsar sites, I don't think Delhi has one. It will be state and UT Wetlands Authority, but in consultation with MOFCC. But for first one, you don't need to consult even. Right? So that is how it will be done. Now, management plan, we have talked about it for every wetland. After having done all this, we also have to determine, regulating is not enough. We'll have to specify what we will do. And therein, a sequential process has been, we have discussed this in the webinar. What is the goal? What is the wetland like? What is the most significant feature? What are the management objectives? Who will monitor? What is the action plan? Now, this is a later on stage when you have finished your job of notification. Simultaneously, I think the State Wetland Authority will provide assistance to the concerned department to prepare a management plan. So I liked very much when Sonal Bhatji, she came back and said that she had consulted horticulture department in identifying what activities need to be done. Now, this is precisely how it has to operate. You have to start with notification. Now we will. I think she has to reach you out for notification purposes. You have to determine whether notification is required. But at the end of the day, all your priority wetlands will need to have a plan which will specify what is to be done and what is not to be done. Now, finally, the big question is what happens when violation is there? Somebody constructs. So what are we supposed to do? Now, what is a violation under the meaning of this act? Any activity which is prohibited or regulated, if you are crossing threshold, that will be deemed as violation. The penal provision of the act will apply. The rule does not define a penal provision, but what it is clarified that whatever EPA recommends, that has to apply. Complaints have to be filed with your office, Dr. Jayachandran. If there is any complaint, they have to be filed. And wetland authority also has to specify a mechanism for watch and ward. For every wetland, you will give this as a responsibility for the nodal department to have a watch and ward. They can entrust it to anyone else. They can say that, okay, the local, Mahalla committee will report. That is their business. But you will have to create that mechanism. And also on half-yearly basis, Dr. Jayachandran, for all wetlands which are notified, you will have to submit a status report. There is also a given proforma. It's a simple proforma which says whether threats are increasing, whether boundary has changed or not. So you'll have to provide a proforma for the ministry. So conclusion, one is, this is an important piece of regulation. There are several pieces of regulation which concern wetlands, but this is the only one which safeguards wetlands and again, against developmental activities. It is a forward-looking regulation because it allows for creating a list, not only which is a negative list, you can also create a positive list. Now, people say that rules limit the nature of application of regulation to certain types of wetlands. That is partly right, but management approaches. This is state wetland authorities are authorities for all wetlands, whether or not they are regulated. That is another question. State Wetland Authority or UT Wetland Authority will remain the nodal department for all authorities concerned. Similarly, their role in their role in any implementation is going to be very vital. That has to be maintained. Can I request people, if they are not speaking, can you please mute your microphone?
Yes,
There is somebody on phone. We can hear your voice. Please, put your microphone on mute. Thank you so much. So this was all, Dr. Jayachandran. I'm open to any questions now. Any clarifications that you may have. I'll stop.
It's a chat there. Sonal ma'am has asked a very good question. Please check the chat.
Okay, I'll do so. I haven't looked at the chat. So yes, chat window. Is there any clause to identify lost wetlands which have been facing deterioration at the hands of developmental by man or used by any other land use? Now, madam, the baseline, what the list of wetlands that is generated by State Wetland Authority is the primary basis on which we determine the loss of wetlands. Now, what is the baseline? Now, Ministry recommends that National Wetland Atlas, which was prepared in 2006-7, has to be used as a reference for preparing the list. But state wetland authorities are free to use any baseline to determine whether the area is a wetland or not. So you can use your land records, you can use your past inventories, any information. So that is the only way in which the lost wetlands or which wetlands which have been facing deterioration. Now, in the case of deterioration, we have discussed your brief documents and health cards will determine what is the level of deterioration. That is the reason why, in the first place, we request all nodal authorities to prepare their brief documents. Therein, you can record your threats, you can record your condition of the wetland. So when you will say that, biological oxygen demand is very high or invasive species is very high, we automatically know that wetland is under stress. So that is the tool by which, wetland rules, determine or extort us to determine the condition of the wetland.
You mean the National Wetland Atlas will be the baseline for determining the wetland inventory in any state?
Yes,
in the absence of any other.
That is a recommendation, but you are free to use any other wetland. That is the recommendation. It is not written in the main rules. It is written in guidelines. So that is the suggestion of the ministry that you can use that as a baseline. The other baseline, the other inventory was done in the year 1985. So those records are also available, but we believe that since those inventories are very old, several of those wetlands might not exist. The spirit is, let us consider what we immediately have and do not degrade from here on. Now, even the National Wetland Atlas data is now about 15 years old. The data is from 2006-7. It was published in 2011. So we are already 15 years down the line. I think I had received a call from one of the officers, whether it was EDMC, wherein they said a wetland has been completely filled up and nobody is willing to restore. Now, herein my suggestion is, if it is recorded as a wetland in the land records, you have to report that wetland has been filled up. But we do not have any permission to change land use or land records. So Delhi State Wetland Authority will, when you prepare your list, you will have to say that this wetland is completely filled up. Now, in terms of restoration, it will take a lot of time and energies. That is a condition of several wetlands, but we cannot write that wetland off from the list just because it is filled up or just because it is too complicated or somebody is encroached. Legally, as guardians of the law, we will have to report that that wetland exists. So, any other question, Dr. Jayachandra?
Yeah, I mean, when we actually start off, we prepare two lists: the generic list and list to be notified. So,
Yes.
can you just detail how actually you prune off that list from the list number
Okay.
one to the list number two?
Simple. So I'll show you how we have to do it. So from your list, I will I will share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen, Dr. Jayachandra? Okay, now you will have to determine for each of the wetland whether it is a river channel or not, whether it is a paddy field or not, whether it is a human-made water body only for these purposes. If it is for any other purpose, the rules will apply. Then whether it is already notified. So if you have any protected area, I think in Delhi, I don't think this is the case, but that is all. So if it falls under any of these categories, it cannot be notified. But if it is not under any of these categories, it will. So we will. So the master list that we will share with you, I'll share it separately, an Excel sheet, wherein you will have to say first of all what is the name of the wetland, what is the known area. You don't have to tell the exact area, the known area of the wetland, which is the nodal department, and then whether it falls under any of these categories. Just 4 columns, and that is your job is done. We also recommend that Dr. Jayachandran, you should mark it on a Google, at least on a Google. If you can create a very good GIS map, that is fine. But at least on Google Earth, you should place a pin and say that this is my wetland. So the list is incomplete if it is not backed up by a spatial data. Ultimately, the ideal situation is when you are creating a complete spatial data list. Any other question from any agency?
Please check the chat box.
So what is the penalty for unwise use of wetland? Does the wetland authority charge a penalty to the concerned agency or concerned industries? So penal provisions are already laid in Environment Protection Act. The penal provisions will apply. Whatever is specified under those rules. So for example, you have a penalty under Water Act, Air Act, the same level of penalties are proposed here. So whatever applies under Environment Protection Act, so there is a list. First of all, there is a list of concerned officers. Where should complaint be registered? So when it comes to Dr. Jayachandran's office, now where will he log in the complaint? So that name of concerned officer has been given. You have to put it into his notice, and then there is a process by which cases can be filed, and the cases can be booked and compounded.
There's another question there.
I can't see it has not come. So please share what is the penalty. I don't see any question on the chat box.
And who is being charged? I mean, the penalty is being levied on whom? Either it's an agency or the industry or the.
So Environmental Protection Act uses the principle of polluter pays. So whoever has done the damage, that will be fixed, and that will be the agency who will be paying the penalty. So it's a simple principle that EPA Act uses, polluter pays. So whoever has done that activity will be identified. So depends. There is a specified procedure under Environment Protection Act. Might be in the next webinar we open it up further.
Any more questions?
So Dr. Jayachandran, for my next webinar,
Yeah.
now from my side, I had prepared inputs on brief document on different topics on wetland rules. What should be the next topic?
I mean, have you exhausted everything? I mean, what are my
There are
topics?
several topics if you want to know. So there was one that I was suggesting how to map wetlands. So wetland mapping is what I wanted to deal next. But if that is acceptable, we can
That's
discuss
good.
how do we draw wetland maps. So the next webinar, the topic will be delineating wetlands.
Yeah.
Delineating wetlands, and if possible, if we are able to cover, we will also discuss further. So these are only 2 slides mentioned in this presentation, but we want to discuss at length how do you delineate a wetland.
Yes.
So how do you apply that in practice? So that will be the topic of the next webinar. Unfortunately, I'm not receiving a lot of questions and requests and their clarification. I'll be more than happy if they are sent to us or if they are communicated to you, Dr. Jayachandran.
Yeah.
But again, as I said, all recordings are available. All materials are also available. Whenever anyone feels like any questions, clarification, please approach Dr. Jayachandran or myself directly, and we'll be more than happy to assist you. What wetland rules? Today's presentation will tell you it is going to be a shared activity. There is no single person, even if Dr. Jayachandran's office with all its mice, they will not be able to put everything in place to ensure that wetlands are conserved. It will need action from the frontline staff, right from EDMC and municipal commissioner officers to senior officers to Dr. Jayachandran's office, who also, I think, you operate with not more than 2 or 3 staff. So this is how collectively we are a force. Individually, I think it is a bit too much. So we'll have to work with each other on creating a good document. Now, Dr. Jayachandran, I think we should also, there are 2 things, 2 requests that have been made by the ministry. One is the ministry would like to discuss the issue of Nazafgarh Jheel brief document with you.
Tomorrow, no?
Yes. And secondly, we should start picking at least one wetland for which draft notification can be prepared.
Yeah.
One draft notification, the first one. So we should identify that wetland, we should get the nodal agency concerned, and let us prepare that draft, so that we will know what is the challenge, what are the challenges, whether the information is complete or not, whether it needs some field work. We'll go down to the field and prepare that data. So that is what we should do. So please share the Kalkaji wetland reference health card on WhatsApp group. Okay. Yes. So we will share the health card. We'll do that.
And the presentations as well, Ritesh ji. The whatever presentations you're doing, can you share in the WhatsApp group?
Okay, sure, yeah. So
Because your slides are very precise. So if the agencies feel that it's pretty cumbersome to go through the entire rules, I think it's pretty bulleted and very easy to use.
Fantastic. Good to know. So, Dr. Jayachandran, we are committed to 1 hour. I hope we should not hold everyone back. I'll leave to you. Hope today's day was enlightening to everyone.
Yeah.
So, hope to you.
Thank you, Ritesh. Thank you so much. I mean, is there anyone who need to comment something? Do you wish to talk? Any one of the participants, please? We have so far received only 38 brief documents, and we need to go forward. I hope agencies are in the process of preparing the brief documents. I just hope that they are in the process of preparing brief documents, because neither Ritesh ji nor I am receiving any requests or any doubts on preparing the brief documents. So you're kindly requested to finish off the brief documents as early as possible, because 38 is too low a number for a place which has got around 1,000 wetlands. So anything else, Ritesh? Shall we close it?
Dr. Jayachandran, I'll request you to create a mechanism wherein all this information can be hosted on a portal. Now, right now, you can keep it inside your system so that it is not put in public domain. But first thing, Dr. Jayachandran, we should work on clarifying our list. For each wetland, there should be a name, there should be a lat long, and there should be a nodal department. You have already done that, the master list, but that master list should be prepared and forwarded to the ministry now. If you're confident that that list is okay, that list should be prepared. That was supposed to be done within 3 months of Wetland Authority Constitution. So some point in time, the courts or ministry might come back to you. So before they, ask you, I think it would be proactive to send a list to the ministry and then also circulate that list to all agencies saying that this is what is the status. People can add, but
The
at
master
least,
list which we have, Ritesh, the master list which we have
yes,
is based upon that court commissioner's report in VK Jain High Court case.
fair
So
enough.
that court commissioner's report contains around thousand wetlands, and that is a master list which are maintaining. And but the problem is we have only 278 wetlands which has been owned up, which has been declared to be owned by landowning agencies. The remaining 750 is not been yet owned. They didn't actually come forward and say yes, this is my wetland. So this is just a list prepared by the court commissioners.
Sir, but
And
you will become the owner. So you are the de facto owner of any wetland in the state.
yeah. So we had to do something about that. The list is ready. I think your idea of actually reconciling it with national wetland address is also good. So I will do some reconciliation with the atlas data,
Yes.
and then I think you are going to share the format of the master list as well.
Yes, please.
No?
Yes.
So I will double check that because I don't think that 4 columns are there. I mean the 4 restricting factors, no, for notification.
Yes.
So we'll add on those columns, and perhaps I will share with you to seek your comments, and then we'll forward to the MOU.
Yes.
Anyone has any comments before we forward the list of court commissioners list to the MOEF?
What we can do also, Dr. Jayachandran, is declare the list as a draft and place it into public domain. So
Yeah.
even if anybody has comments, they can write to you and say that please add, please delete. So that can be done, and you can put in a specified time. Say that this is the list that we are finalizing. Please, if you have any suggestion on that list, that can even public domain. Public can also comment. General public can also comment. That list now needs to be released in public. So first lot, I think the government departments, you can send it to different government departments and get it vetted.
That has been done, Rideshi. I mean, we have forwarded that list, the 1,000 list to all the water body agencies, and
Yes.
they picked up 278 wetlands to own up. The remaining 750 is not been owned up. So the problem is that the remaining 800, 750 odd is majorly belonging to DDA. So all the majority of the wetlands, 800 wetlands around, they belong to DDA. Now DDA has returned to the Panchayat department around 400 wetlands that they belong to Panchayat. Now it's actually now between Panchayat and DDA regarding ownership of 400 water bodies. That's a huge number. And yesterday we had a meeting in Jal Shakti. The minister Shekhawat, he took a meeting on Yamuna. The topic was Yamuna. Even our same honorable CM was present there. So we had a discussion on wetlands. So there was an agenda on wetlands. So I declared the status. I told them the status, the present status. I told them that only 38 wetlands brief documents were received under the rules, and we are working on preparation of the remaining. The thing is that the 400, the remaining, even if 400 wetlands belong to Panchayat, it's up to DDA to prepare the remaining brief documents for the remaining 400 wetlands.
But Dr. There is only thing, you have to determine whether these are natural or not. If the wetland rules don't apply, you don't need a brief document. Brief document is only for the wetlands which are covered in the document, right? So you might not pursue all 1,000 wetlands. But then
we need the first list number 1, na?
Yes, list number 1 is
required. For that list, we need the comprehensive list we need.
Yeah, but that can be built from much simpler information. Right. What you need now is the boundary, the lat longs, what is the wetland type, and who is the agency. Might be that's all. That is sufficient for you to build.
That's where we are stuck. The agency is not owning up.
Yeah.
The agency is owning up only 278 wetlands now. The remaining 700, we are still struggling because if we put it on the dubbing of, we send to the MOEF saying that DDA is the agency and DDA is not owning up, then perhaps we will be in suit. So
no,
that's the issue.
Understand. So I think that can be resolved only at the level of DDA chairman.
Yeah.
Yeah. but
I
at
mean,
least you are making progress.
yeah.
Dr. Jayachandran, I must say, I work with a lot of state wetland authorities. The way you are moving is much appreciated.
That's great.
You are one of the forward-looking states wherein you are convening webinars, you are talking to people about these problems. So you are far advanced than other states. So you are a good role model for other states. Some things to be imbibed from others. For example, UP government, what they have done is they have entered without. So they are going through two processes. One is notification. They have also entered all wetlands in their land use records. So any what they call in UP Khata, the land Khata and Khasra. So their land records will have wetlands. If we can achieve that, that would be fantastic because land records are the weakest link. If the land records are altered, anybody can change land into anything else, and then they are able to build, construct. So we will have to take that proactive step. And I think I can arrange a discussion with your concerned counterpart in Uttar Pradesh. They can come and talk about their, experiences, and you can also see whether that is feasible in your case or not.
Yeah, sure. That's a good idea. And I mean, it's pretty easy also now because our principal secretary also happens to be the divisional commissioner. So, so he is in charge of the land records. So we are pretty lucky in that manner that we would be easily we could achieve this target of entering in land records. We'll do that.
So, Dr. Jayachandran will close it today. Thank you
Yes.
so much for this time. And next week we will then be discussing, wetland delineation.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank everyone for participation. Bye bye.